And we always think that like holding on to the past is a way of being stuck. And here's a story where holding on to that past is what enables us to move forward, what enables us to come home. It hasn't opened yet because of the war, but the National Library has sort of opened, a soft opening, and you have an exhibition that is timed for the opening of the new National Library. So tell us a little about that.
In the last 3 years or so, I've been documenting the old building of the National Library that just moved to a new location. And I've been documenting the books slowly emptied out of 4 million books that was in the library. And the project was called the Biblioscopia. When I was a child and I used to go to the National Library, you would put in a note to ask for a book, and it would go through all the different tunnels until it would reach the librarian, who would send the book up. And there would be all these tracks of books kind of running on the ceiling of the library, taking the books from one floor to another. And I was always fascinated by those tracks. And I thought about how we have this subconscious of our culture and kind of a language streaming through these vessels. I was thinking about the building of the library as kind of this body, like our body, and all these vessels that held any book request for the last 50 years or so. Any book you asked, like all the yearning for knowledge kind of went through these vessels. And I wanted to document that subconscious of our culture.
I love this notion of an old body that contains all of this knowledge. There's something about the way in which many parts of that become obsolete in the new building. The system to retrieve books, it's robotic with a code on each book. And you capture the people who found the books and put them on these conveyors, right?
Right. The books were contained in these huge 3 underground halls, with the incredible smell of books. And there were librarians trained for dozens of years. How do you lose a book within this great place? And how do you stack a book? Like all these things that were very physical. So all the books were moved into this robotic system that people can't go in because it doesn't have a lot of air in order to preserve the books. I was very attached to this old building, to the smell of books, to the thought of a person kind of walking to the shelf and taking the book that I've requested. And this idea of what is our relationship to language? What is our relationship to knowledge? We access it through our phone. It's not physical. We don't carve it with our hands. We're not surrounded by its smell. It's something that I was thinking about a lot as I was documenting that kind of heartbreaking process that also has a wonderful kind of next stage, but it says something about our time and where we are in relationship to language and books.
So in speaking with you about this amazing exhibition, I was thinking of the character of Serach Bat Asher, that you talked about old bodies that possess knowledge. And here's this midrashic tradition based on the fact that one of the grandchildren of Jacob is Serach, and she's mentioned first in Genesis with regard to the generation that goes down to Egypt. And then she's mentioned again in the book of Numbers in the wilderness with the generation that left Egypt. And so the rabbis and the midrashic tradition have a field day with her because here's this woman that must have lived over 400 years. And she becomes the archetypal wise woman. And I wanted to look at just an excerpt. There's a lot of texts that we could look at about Serach Bat Asher. But this is a text about Moses' promise to gather the bones of Joseph as the children of Israel are leaving Egypt. And of course, we're studying from the Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael, which is an early Tanaitic collection of Midrashim. And the rabbis have the obvious question that they address, which is, How did he know where Joseph's bones were? And here's where this old knowledge in this old woman named Sarah appears. And the Midrash asks, Moshe mehechan haya yodea hechan haya kavur Yosef. And how did Moses know where Joseph's bones were? Amru, Serach bat Asher, nishtayara me'oto hadur. That Serach bat Asher, she remained from that same generation. And the Midrash goes on to show that she shows him where this coffin was placed inside the Nile. The Egyptians made it as hard to find centuries later as possible, but Sarah knows. In a way, I think you're sort of saying that old National Library that's been replaced has some knowledge inside that will be lost in this new beautiful building. And here are the children of Israel, and they're at this momentous point in their history where they're leaving the old of Egypt and they're about to enter into the unknown. And to make that transition, we need Serach bat Asher.
Well, I have to add something that I've just learned, that the old building of the National Library became a school for children evicted from the South, and the school was kind of built by the workers of the National Library. And I was thinking about what it means for this building to have this second life, and what does it mean for these students at this time to be surrounded by what used to be that place. And I was also thinking about a beautiful idea of female leader as someone holding the knowledge for generations. Memory is held in so many different ways. Do you hold memory in your brain? Do you hold memory in a book? Do you hold memory in your body?
We always think that like holding on to the past is a way of being stuck. And here's a story with the bones of Joseph, where holding on to that past is what enables us to move forward, what enables us to come home. And I think that might be part of the journey of the National Library as well, and of life.